welcome to episode 50.
Dun, da, da, da.
Yay! 50 episodes of Coffee and Co-Read, your source for all things literary with Catherine
and Kristen, where we believe there's nothing better than a hot coffee and an awesome book. Join us for our virtual book club where we take one book a month and dive into all the drama, adventure, and romance we can find. Hi, Catherine.
Hey, Kristen.
So, episode 50.
Yay!
Because Valentine's Day is just around the corner, we thought we would discuss some of our favorite and some iconic Valentine's Day couples today.
Yeah. Some romance in the air.
Yes, there's love in the air. But also, guys, stay tuned for this Monday where we will also be releasing a special Galentine's episode because not only do we love love, we also love friendship.
Yes.
And isn't friendship the greatest love of all?
It's true. Let's stop putting romance on a pedestal and put friendships up there because that is a relationship that will get you through shit.
Yeah. But today we're talking love.
Yeah, today we're talking
love. Today we're talking romance. So we agree on a lot of our favorite couples. Mm-hmm. So very I guess let's just talk about them.
Yeah. So obviously, if you've listened to last week of our episode or almost any other week of our podcast at all, you know that we are huge Darcy stans and Pride and Prejudice stans. So I think the OG character for us would have to be Darcy character. Relationship? Whatever. Would have to be Darcy and Elizabeth.
Heart all of them.
100%. Like, Darcy is just my favorite.
Yeah. And it comes up. I think it comes up in this book. Again, like Tori is not a huge fan of Pride and Prejudice. She's not a huge fan of Elizabeth. She prefers Darcy. But I love Elizabeth. I think she is peak, like, I don't need no man in a time when you really do.
Yeah.
I just like how independent she is and how she doesn't settle. She's like, no, you need to change for me. I'm not going to accept you when you are a bit of a dickhead.
Yes. Even though she might have been a bit wrong.
Yes. But he still had to amend some of his behaviors, right? Like, he still had to, like, work his shit out in order.
Yeah, you can't diss her family during a proposal. Like, it just was not very smart the way he went about it.
No.
So yes, he did change, and I feel like they both changed each other in a mature way that, like, you don't see anymore.
Yeah. Because
people are so, like, and obviously this could get into a spiral, but people are very set in their ways and are almost afraid, I think, now to change their minds because they don't want to seem dumb or weak or anything like that. So it is nice to read about characters that do change their minds about things that they thought they knew, because it makes you think that you could maybe do it yourself.
Agreed.
So the next couple, which I obviously love, if you listen to our wrap up of last year's podcast episode, Dimitri and Rose. I just love them. I feel like they're two souls that were just meant to be together no matter what, even in icky circumstances. That I know you don't love, but I just love them together, and they are obviously endgame, and I love them.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I also love them. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I hate them together. I love them together. And when we read all of the, like, romantic bits with them, I'm like, oh, like, my heart pitter-patters and flutters and everything. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, like, and I can get past the icky bits when I'm reading it. It's just after the fact when I'm thinking about it, I'm like, ugh, it's a little problematic.
Yeah. Oh, for
But
sure.
at the same time, like, I love them together, and they are like, do you know what? Okay. Remember when you were a teenager and like you would read stuff and like you would dream about that like strong, handsome person to like come and whisk you away?
Yeah.
So I loved them at the time because that was like, oh my God, like she got that dream of this like strong, responsible, amazing looking person being interested in her and like whisking her away, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like forbidden love sort of a scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And now as an adult, I guess that doesn't, I don't know, it doesn't like speak to me as much as it did when I was a kid.
Yeah. There's a lot of books that like when I reread them now, I'm like, oh, that is not at all what I remember. I don't love that in any way anymore. And a lot of them are the very much the I'm not like other girls trope and like that shit that we've talked about many times. So I completely get that. But for some reason this book still holds up for me and I love them. I love him.
I will say they have such a tumultuous relationship altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I find they had to make a ton of sacrifices to be together in general.
Yeah.
And even on top of that, I find that their circumstances still suck.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
it's their class of person is not great. So
no.
I feel like it's never going to be an easy relationship.
Yeah, and I feel like that also is sort of not problematic, but it's sort of sad for me because I want them to have their like happily ever after. And I feel like even though they are together and they're happy with each other, they're never going to get that happily ever after because their relationship is never going to be easy in that society that they're in.
Well, and it's never just going to be the two of them. They're always going to be worrying about other people. They're never going to take a vacation together. They're never going to be able to just sleep together and not worry about somebody getting killed.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I get it. It's just a sad life in general for a Dompier in this world. So I don't really know. I don't know. Maybe in the Bloodline series they fix it all. I doubt it.
They don't. I don't think they do.
I don't either. But anyway, yeah.
So the next couple that we both love are Aelin and Rowan from
Yes.
Throne of Glass.
Series,
yes. The series.
Yeah.
And this is a spoiler, obviously, because we have only done Throne of Glass so far on our podcast. We have not touched any of the others. We don't actually meet Rowan until book 3, Heir of Fire. But yeah.
Yeah.
What else can we say about them? They're amazing.
Yeah. They're my favorite Sarah J. Maas couple. 100%, without a doubt, love them to pieces. The end.
Yeah.
with a small shout out to Lysandra and Adian.
Next up on the list, obviously, since we're talking SJM, I need to include Feyre and Rhys. I know that some people actually find their relationship a little bit problematic, especially what happens in like
Silver Flames.
Yeah, like people think that Feyre sort of goes downhill a little bit, and Rhys, like the way they are.
It's so hard, and I understand why people think it. And I have my own issues with Rhys as a character, but I think the issue with Silver Flames is it's in somebody else's point of view. It's not in Feyre's point of view. So it's not going to be the same lens that you see Feyre or Rhys in. But it is actually a worse lens for Reese because the main character fucking hates him.
Yeah.
So like he's obviously going to come out the bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think we can judge them in that book 100%. Like obviously some choices you can judge, but everybody makes fucking mistakes. Like I'm not going to sit here and say I've never made a mistake.
Well, but at the same time, so like Silver Flame is all about Nesta, if you haven't read it. And obviously we already know from Akatar and Akamath that Reese will always hate Nesta and will always struggle with her and Elaine too because of what they did to Feyre, because of what they let her do without helping. Regardless of anything, they screwed her over and they fucked her up.
Yeah.
Mentally.
Which is the reason that you hate them too.
Yes. So like, and I will say like, yeah, sure, when I read Nesta's book, I felt for her, but like I still don't forgive them, and they're fictional characters. So like I still struggle with forgiveness, even though I really liked Silver Flame and I felt bad for Nesta, but like I'm still gonna be like, it doesn't excuse you for what you did in my mind. So like so I don't know, you know, and again, to me, they're fictional characters. So I can only imagine him feeling that way towards like the person he loves and values above all others. So
yeah.
I just love that like in Akamath, he understands what she needs and he's sensitive to her like choices, right? He knows she's been through trauma and makes it very clear that she can do what she wants to do.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I don't know. And I like that she sort of grew into herself. She realized she didn't have to be this soft, fluffy, like meek, mild female. She can be a badass bitch and have someone still love and respect her.
Yeah. My main issue with Reese is he started this big bad like villain and now he's a little softy.
Yeah.
And that's not I don't want that.
No. I know. You like it when they stay the villain.
Yeah. Super problematic, but anyway. I do all that to say, I also obviously like Feyre and Reese. They are a good couple. I think in coming books, Aktar books, we could see some other good couples. I'm thinking mainly of Moore and whoever she will end up with. I think that there was some foreshadowing in Silver Flames about who it could be, and I would be very excited to read about it. I'm excited for Moore's story, and obviously also I want to know more about Moore in general.
Yeah, me too.
But on to our next couple, Simon and Baz from Carry On. My little heart loves them. I read this book. I went into it knowing absolutely nothing. Back in the day, I saw it on Tumblr and somebody had posted about it. And I just went out to the store and bought it and read the first book because that was all that was out.
Yeah.
And I got to the scene when, spoilers for Carry On a tiny bit, but I got to the scene where Baz comes back to school and I was actually taking a bath and he was like, I can't stop thinking about Simon. I'm in love with him. And I actually flipped the book because I did not expect it. I was so shocked. And I was so like, when you first start reading it, it very much is Harry Potter.
Yeah. Like, and it's funny when you said that to me before I had read it, I was so confused. I did not understand at all. And then when I read it, I was like, oh, I totally get it now.
Yeah. But by the endish of the book, I love them together. They're so cute. They're perfect.
Yeah. Although I didn't read the second. I started reading the second book and I was really unhappy with it. So I just stopped.
Yeah. The second book and even the third book, like, I feel like this could also be its own full conversation, but I liked the second book a lot. I read it obviously when it first came out. because I was obsessed. And it ended, and a lot of people were unhappy because the relationship was a bit on shore. And
Tumultuous.
yes, but Simon went through a shit ton of trauma.
Mm-hmm.
And then he thought he was straight his entire life. And now he has a boyfriend and he doesn't feel good enough
Mm-hmm.
for him. So it's like, I understood the concept. It's also one of those, like, when you have a trilogy of books, the second book often goes like,
Does a
does
dip.
a dip in the relationship. And then at the end of the book, you're like, oh my God. And then the third book, it's like all wrapped up with a pretty bow. And I don't really remember the third book enough. I did read it when it came out. And I don't think I loved it as much as the second one, but I didn't hate it by any means. I just haven't read it more than once. But so yeah, I can see why people aren't sure about the other two books. But long story short, whatever. I love them as a couple.
Yeah.
Then my next honorable mention, not quite a couple, but I do love them, are Inej and Kaz. I just love that they love each other, but they're afraid. I just think if they weren't so fucked up and they didn't live in the world they lived in, they could maybe be good together.
Listen, I agree with you. I think they could be great together, but I love that Inej doesn't settle for him. Like, even though he wants to be together just on his terms, right? And like, I absolutely love that she says no, even though she wants him too. But she's like, no, I don't want what you can give me. I want more. Like, I want to be able to touch. I want to be able to kiss. I want to like hold hands. And like, knowing that he can't give that to her, like, I love that she doesn't settle. Even though she loves him, knowing he loves her, I just really appreciate that she knows she can find someone who can give her what she needs.
Yeah, I do love that too, but I just think that if they could get their shit together, they'd be a cute couple.
Agreed. Next couple is Clary and Jace. So these guys are from City of Bones series by Cassandra Clare. It's a bit of an older a bit of an older series. I think it came out mid 2000s. But
so old.
However, I just really like them. I remember being so invested in them as a couple. It was the first, I'm pretty sure it was actually like the first book series I actually had to Wikipedia. Like, this is what got me started into spoilers. I remember, like, I actually had to full on Wikipedia what was going to happen in the next books because I was so upset about them potentially being related.
But I feel like you were also reading this while the books were coming out.
Yeah, I was.
So, like, really, it's only the first three that are like.
Yeah. Do you know, I think I actually picked it up when book 4 had come out.
Yeah.
So I read ahead as much as I could to figure out. And then when I got to book 3 and things sort of resolved, I was like, okay, I can finish the series now.
Yeah, that makes sense. And like, I remember that time in our lives and like both of us just being head over heels in love with Jace.
Yes.
Like, I honestly think if you had a boy child, if you birthed a boy child, you were going to name him Jace.
Yeah, it was on my list. It was 100% on my list of names. Yeah, it was not on my husband's list of names. He was like, no. But like, do you remember we actually talked about, if anybody has like seen the series or the show, they all have these like tattoos. I don't even remember what they're called. That's how long ago it was.
Runes.
And runes. And remember, we were actually planning on getting rune tattoos.
I would still get the Parabatai rune with you.
Oh, like, my God, yes, let's do it.
Yeah.
We can, yes.
We said it on this podcast. We're fucking doing it.
Yeah.
I need to look up what it looks like, but I'll fucking do it.
Let's do it. Because like, and I remember I still have them in my house. I have a bunch of temporary ones that we found at, I don't even know where.
Chapters, I think.
Maybe when the movie came out or something like that.
Yes.
So next on our list is from the same series, and we have to talk about them. So Clary and Jace are one couple. Our other big sort of couple in that series is Magnus and Alec. And they are a same-sex couple. And they're honestly probably one of the first, if not the first, same-sex couple that I read about in a book series. Like, and I feel like honestly they were like breaking barriers before. Not that the early 2000s were like hugely not that like, I don't know, I felt like it's a lot more common now. Like, so many more people are including representation. And I feel like this book came out when representation was not as not that it wasn't important, but it wasn't as talked about as it is now.
Yes. And the thing about this series is the first book in the series, I can't remember when they actually get together in this series, but I'm thinking it might not be the first book, whenever it is. But you knew that Alec was a gay man. Well, he wasn't a man because he's
gay
still
boy.
Yeah, he was gay because he was in love with
Jace.
And it was probably, you're right, one of the first like instances of representation that I did read, especially in mainstream, because like you can find whatever you want to find. Like, books are doing good now.
Yeah. Better.
For the most part.
Yeah.
Like, better. Yes. Obviously not as much in mainstream, but that, like, it'll eventually change because we're looking for more of it and it is going in the right direction.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it was one of the first relationships. And something I do love about the relationship was, and I say this knowing that in the later 3 books, it's not true at all, but it seemed really healthy.
Yeah.
It was like the only really healthy relationship in the first 3 books was theirs. And even later on, like, they do have their rocky point about immortality, which, like,
valid.
You can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, like, anybody else in the book was having way more issues. Like, one couple thought that they were related. Another couple was in a triangle and they didn't know about it.
Well,
because the guy was
two of them didn't.
Yeah. The guy was being iffy. Yeah. And then another one was a girl's abuser. And then, so much happening. Yeah. But their relationship was, like, based one of the main examples of healthy.
Yeah. And it was respectful. And, like, Alec, he really turned his family upside down for Magnus, right? He, like, it was not okay for him to be a gay shadow hunter. And he put all that aside because he just loved Alec. And I just love that. I love love.
I do too. And, like, it wasn't even, like, the gay part was not great as a shadow hunter, but also loving a downworlder, it was like a double whammy of, like, not great for him. And it was just, like, true love. It really was. And I love their relationship.
Yeah, me too. Moving on, we're going to go to one of my favorite couples that's a bit controversial. I'm going with Hermione and Ron, and I don't care what anybody has to say about it. I will die on this hill.
I agree. I think they should have been together. I absolutely do not think Hermione and Harry should have been together.
No!
Like, that whole conversation that happened afterwards and J.K. Rowling sticking her nose and shit, I just can't with J.K. Rowling anyway, and I know a lot of people know. Anyway, we do not love J.K. Rowling, obviously, anymore. But I think I think Harry and Ginny should have ended up together.
Yeah.
Ginny was a badass in the books, and I loved her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Hermione and Ron were meant to be together. And I also love that the main person in the book can be friends with a woman throughout their entire schooling and it not be
Romantic.
him simping for her the entire time.
Yeah.
So I'm just so happy that it went that way. And it was such a formative part of me growing up reading those books.
Mm-hmm.
But reading those books and being like, oh, men and women can be friends.
Yes.
Like, and then little boys read these books and they are like, oh, you can be friends with girls. Like, it's all the shit that's come out after. I know it's not great. And I'm not trying to like bypass any of that by any means. But if nothing else, there are a few good themes in the book. And one of them is that you can be friends across genders and it not be romantic.
Yes. Yeah. And like, do you remember, I know the movie did a great job of this in 7.1.
Yeah.
Remember when they're having the tent scene when she's upset and they dance together and you almost think like, oh my God, is it going to get romantic even though you were sort of like, this is not okay. But then
this did not happen in the books.
But then it completely doesn't. They dance together and it is not romantic. It is just having a laugh. And then like
they needed it.
Yeah. And it was just fantastic. So,
and honestly, I think the movie almost did this better than the book did too. Like the showing that they are friends outside of Ron being there. It's not just Ron tying them together. Like they are friends themselves.
Yeah. But yeah, no. Hermione and Ron all the way. And if Hermione didn't have Ron, there's only one other acceptable mate for her, and that is Victor Crumb. And I don't care who anymore, right?
He was so sweet.
And he loved her so much.
That's true. I would have picked him 100% if I were in her shoes.
Yeah. Getting into Solitaire, since, you know, we're doing the book Solitaire, we're going to talk about Nick and Charlie, too. So we love Nick and Charlie. Obviously, I loved Heartstopper when it came out. And we've read the graphic novels, and they are great. And Nick and Charlie are just like, they're not always perfect. Like, they have their moments.
Yeah.
Like, they obviously fight, but for the most part, they are the definition of loving, happy relationship, and I love them.
Yeah. And it's not even like, I mean, like, happy relationship, because it's one of, like, Charlie's worst points in his life. It's just, like, they're so supportive, and they're just so good together, and it's healthy. Yeah. It's so healthy, and it's so nice to see healthy relationships portrayed in books. And I know it's partially the books that we pick, but a lot of the relationships aren't very healthy. No. I still love them, but if I was in one of them, I would not be happy.
Yeah, agreed.
And the last one, which I'm going to call out because I read One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Not sure if that's exactly how you say her last name, but she also wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue. But her couple, August and Jane, are in One Last Stop, and I just love them as a couple. They are adorable, and the book was just not what I was expecting when I read it. And Kristen, you need to read it sometime so we can actually talk about it.
Yeah.
But I went in being like, oh, this is going to be like Red, White, and Royal Blue. And then I read it and I was like, what the fuck is going on? But throughout the book, like, I just loved their relationship.
Aww,
a lot.
Lovely.
Yeah.
So after all of that,
I know.
This is just a heads up that we are not a spoiler-free zone, and things could get a little saucy. Although not really. because this is Solitaire.
Yes.
So today we are on week 2 of Solitaire. We are discussing chapters 11 to 23 today. So last week we met our main character, Tori. She goes to Higgs school with her best friend Becky. Her younger brother Charlie and his boyfriend Nick both go to Truham, which is the boys' school like across the street. And last week, Tori meets 2 new boys. Lucas, who is a friend from her childhood that just transferred to Higgs and is looking to reconnect. And Michael, who is a bit of an oddball, who wants to be friends with her, but she doesn't really understand why. And she's sort of this self-depreciating, like, depressed teenager. She's a bit sullen. She doesn't really connect with people. But Michael seems hell-bent on being her friend. So yeah. So we start off this week in Becky's bedroom. So Tori is trying to help her decide what costume to wear for her fancy dress birthday party, aka her costume party. So she's deciding between Tinkerbell and Hermione. I guess Becky is like your typical teenage girl. It's her best friend, so she's standing around in her underwear, like trying on her costumes. But Tori says that like nakedness really makes her uncomfortable, even though it's her best friend. But she doesn't really say anything either. Tori also tells Becky that she doesn't really want to dress up at all. But Becky's like, it's my birthday. You have to dress up. And you also have to talk to people at the party. And, like, this part of their relationship, like, in this section, they really show, in my mind, that, like, they really, like, they talk about how much they love each other and how much they appreciate each other. And it's more than what I've seen, obviously, in the last section, and in the future, like stuff happens. So
yeah, which is very high school.
Very high school, yeah. So like Tori's like, well, I don't really want to talk to people, and Becky's like, don't worry, I got you, and I've always got you, and like this is what I'm here for, and it's really sweet.
Yeah. I appreciated it because, like you said, I did feel like their relationship was missing something. But you can tell that they love each other.
Yeah. So she goes home and she dresses up as Wednesday Addams, and I really love it, especially after Wednesday has just come out on Netflix and it was really good.
Yeah. I didn't watch it. But yeah, I like, I don't know. That is a costume that I will always recognize.
Yeah, 100% right. So I guess obviously this book came out a couple of years ago, so no one, when she gets to the party that night, no one knows who Wednesday Addams is.
I don't understand that though.
But I guess
I just don't get it.
It's England, right? I don't know. Maybe the Addams.
Oh,
like yeah, for us, of course, everyone knows who the Addams family is, but like maybe they don't.
I guess yeah, you have a point.
And like, I also don't think, like, for example, I don't think my students would have known who Wednesday Addams was either, except for that the show has just come out.
Yeah,
it's a generational thing.
That's true.
Anyway, so she waves at Lucas when she gets to the party, and he's dressed up as this weird. So he's dressed up as a French guy, like a Frenchman's costume, but then he has garlic bulbs.
Funny, like,
I don't understand the garlic bulbs. Like, I'm wondering if this is some sort of pun or some sort of character that I'm missing. I don't understand. He's dressed up with the stripy shirt, a beret, and then garlic bulbs around his neck. Like, is he French garlic? Is it garlic French? Is this a dish? Is he dressed up as a culinary experience? I don't know. French onion?
French onion soup? No. I don't know. I just tried to Google it, but nothing is.
Yeah,
coming up.
Yeah. So I don't understand. But anyway, so she waves at him, but then she runs away from him because she doesn't want to talk to him. Because
Relatable.
like we said last week, she sort of says that like she thinks it will be too hard to try and rekindle a friendship with him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. She goes to the backyard to Becky, and Becky has this news that Ben Hope has asked her out. And like Tori doesn't really seem that excited, but like Becky is really excited. She's like your typical like boy obsessed person. Somebody then sends her a message on her blog asking why cars part for ambulances. And Tori sort of like rolls her eyes at this comment, this message, and thinks to herself like, oh, it's because the world isn't full of assholes, obviously. But it's sort of like, I think that that's an odd, because she seems so pessimistic all the time. So it seems such a twist in her character for her to be like, obviously not everybody is an asshole, when in my mind she's so like depressed and like pessimistic about everything.
But she doesn't think other people are assholes. She thinks she's an asshole. It's more she's like, she just hates herself a lot. I don't think she thinks other people are shitty.
Lucas approaches her, like I guess he tracks her down, finds her, and tries to chat. And she tells him that she's boring. Like he's like, oh, you know, you having fun? And she's like, no, I'm like super bored. And she's also really like, I don't know if you call it self-depreciating, but like she's one of these people who's like, you don't have to talk to me, like I don't have anything interesting to say, so like you don't have to stand here, like go find someone interesting to talk to. So like it's very like apologetic almost. Like she doesn't think that people will want to hear her and talk to her because of who she is. Like I think she thinks that like, oh, he must only be talking to me out of pity or something like that.
Yeah, which obviously anybody reading the book is like, he's not.
No. So she says again, like she doesn't have anything interesting to say, and Lucas is like, no, like I'm pretty sure you do have interesting things to say, but you just don't say them. And for some reason this really pisses her off. Like and maybe it's just hearing the truth bothers her. I don't really know, but yeah, so she gets pissed at this and makes an excuse to like leave him. And she gets angry, and like, you know how sometimes you get angry and you're like super out of breath because you're just so mad, and she doesn't know why, but like she ends up in the bathroom and like closes herself in there and just stays in there, and she's like tearing up in the bathroom, and like she just like looks in the mirror and watches the tears come and then they dry and then they come and then they dry, and it's like she's really fun at parties.
Yep, it's true.
Anyway, so all of a sudden there's a knock at the door. She opens it and it's Michael. He made it to the party. I don't even know if he was invited.
This is on the bathroom door too.
Yeah.
Like it's not even just on the door.
Not the door to the house, it's the door to the bathroom. So he's obviously at the party. And I love that he walks in, he said he needs to pee. So he just starts peeing with Tori in there. And
I can't imagine in high school, if a boy peed around me, I would have been like, I would have jetted the fuck out of there. Yeah. I was not.
Oh my God. I actually vividly remember this, like vividly. Me and my high school boyfriend at the time, we were at a friend's house partying. It wasn't a party. It was just an intimate get-together.
What are you, Phineas and Ferb? What are you, fucking Candace? This isn't a party. It's just an intimate get-together.
Anyway, so there's only like 6 or 7 of us there, but of course we all got trashed, and I was like absolutely toasted. And like, it was high school, so it's not like me and my boyfriend got to like sleep together very often. Like, and I mean sleep together in the most innocent of ways, like actually sleep in the same bed, because again, we were in high school. So we had our own room in this guy's house. I don't know how, like, I have no idea how he swung that, but
someone pulled some strings.
We had our own room with an ensuite.
Jesus.
But it had no bed. So
why didn't you just live there?
It had no
what?
It had no bed. So we were on like an air mattress with a sleeping bag.
Oh, okay. That's fine.
Anyway, so I remember vividly, I was so drunk he had to help me pee. And then he peed while I was taking my contacts out. And I just remember being like, oh my God, how comfortable are we with each other? We're like, he's peeing in front of me. And he literally had to help me sit down because I was so drunk. And I remember that vividly. I don't remember much else. But that I remember.
The fact that you needed help to pee, but you could get your contacts out. I can tell you right now, I don't know if I've ever needed help to pee. And I've only once needed, and by needed, I mean I let somebody take my contacts out. I probably would have just slept in them. I did that a few times back in the day. But like, I did let somebody take my contacts out once. Oh, yeah. But I don't think I've ever needed anyone to help me pee.
Oh, well, anyway. That's my sordid past. Anyway, she's sort of like, oh my God, like, can you wait till I leave? And then she walks out.
Yeah.
And she just keeps going, and he finishes up quite quickly and then like catches up to her. And
which, if you needed to pee that bad, it wouldn't be that quick. Or is that just because I'm old?
Maybe. Anyway, she tells him, like, I'm sort of bored and annoyed. I'm going to go home. And she also says, like, Michael, like, you should go hang out with some of the other year 13s that are here.
Because he seems like the type.
Yeah, right. So she says that she wants to go home and, like, she doesn't say this out loud. She says in her head that she wants to blog and sleep. But she also says, like, she knows that if she were to go home now, she wouldn't be able to sleep, even though she wants to.
Yeah.
And he sort of then asks her, like, if you want to go to a bedroom and watch a movie. And it's completely innocent, like, not in a romantic way at all. Just like, hey, it's loud here. There's a lot of people. Like, Tori doesn't seem the type to really be, like, a drinker. And he doesn't either, really. Not that they don't, but that they're not huge partiers. So going somewhere quiet without leaving works out.
Especially since it's her best friend's birthday. She doesn't really want to leave because she's like,
Yeah. So they go to Becky's room and he pulls out, so like they're looking through all of her DVDs and he pulls out Beauty and the Beast. And I'm like, yes, love it. So good.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
I think it's my favorite.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't, it's so hard to pick a favorite.
But like, if we're talking old school classic, and when I say old school,
obviously we are.
I mean old school classic princess Disney movies, Beauty and the Beast, hands down. If we're going into the modern stuff with like Lilo and Stitch and like Frozen and Moana and all of those, we're talking different ball game.
I'm not versed enough in the new shit to have an opinion.
I have 2 girls, so
I know. Yeah, you're versed.
I am.
You verse yourself. You can sing every song.
Yeah.
Also, now that Anastasia is a Disney princess, she's my favorite. Dimitri again. I'm a sucker for Dimitri.
Do you know what my only issue is with Anastasia? Is that her grandmother just found her, or she just found her grandmother, her like family, and then she abandons her again. And I know it was done for love, but I feel like that's not fair for her poor grandmother.
Yeah, I get that.
Anyway.
But I loved the story.
Yeah, agreed. Anyway, so he pulls out Beauty and the Beast, and Tori's like, ugh, no. He's like, oh, well, we're doing it anyway. So they put it on.
Which is so me. I'm Tori.
And I'm Michael, yeah.
Yeah.
So he asks her, like, why doesn't she like Disney? And she says she doesn't hate it, but she says she doesn't like perfect stories because she finds them unrealistic. So she says that like them being so perfect makes them fake, and real life isn't perfect, so therefore it can't be real life. And I'm like thinking in my head, yeah, but at the same time, why does a movie have to be real life? Why does it have to be realistic?
So,
because we find out later she loves Star Wars.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. But I think the big issue is she's just so young, and she's never, like, she said earlier that she's never felt any romantic feelings towards anybody. Like, she just, and not that anybody ever has to feel romantic feelings towards anybody. And like, I can get that, like, yes, if you look at Beauty and the Beast and watch it in a pessimistic viewpoint, you can absolutely just be like, this is awful.
Yes.
Because it's not great.
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah. She's not great. I'm not gonna lie. But I do think it's just her age, and like everything in her life so far is not great. Like,
No.
her mother is an asshole. Her brother, who she loves above anything else in the world, is struggling, and she has to deal with that without anybody to really support her. So like, I do understand why she might feel that way.
Yeah.
Sad.
It is sad. Anyway, so she's annoyed with Belle as they're watching the movie. She said she identifies with Gaston because he hates books. And I'm like, oh my God, you identify with Gaston. Anyway, they then like sort of talk about themselves a little bit. They're trying to get to know each other. Tori admits that she hates books. And Michael admits that he didn't do English. Like, I guess it's like, I don't know if it's, guys, I'm not great at the British education system, especially this whole year 12, 13 thing. And then like you do your GCSEs and then you do like, I don't know if it's like AP, but so I think Tori is doing AP English. I don't know if that's what it's called. But he's not. And he admits that the reason he didn't do English is because he likes to read, but he doesn't like to study the books. He doesn't think that books should be like picked apart and done in a studying fashion. He just likes to read them.
Me.
But like, are we not studying the books right now? Is this not what we're doing?
It's different.
Do you know what bothers me as an English teacher? Like, I teach
I can
English. So like, obviously I don't have that same opinion, but what bothers me is that people, and I say people, I mean school boards and schools and teachers, pick books with like these really deep themes, and like they're really like deep books. Like, pick shit that's entertaining. You can still get a decent theme. You can still get symbolism. You can still get setting. Like, you can still get all these concepts that you want to teach. Like, you can still find allegory in like books that are entertaining. Like, pick good books. Why are we still teaching like, and again, nothing against these books. I've read them. I like them. But why are we still reading To Kill a Mockingbird? Why are we still reading Catcher in the Rye? Like, why are we still reading The Giver? I love them, but like, kids don't appreciate them because they were written like 70 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, pick modern books that the kids can relate to, and then maybe they won't hate studying books and they won't hate reading books because we don't expose them to the good stuff that's out there. That is my TED Talk. I'm sorry.
No, I liked it. I completely agree. I think there are a lot of books that could have been in our school that were not, and we had the same books that are still in school now, and like, it's not fair to the students. It's not really fair to the teachers. Like,
nope,
everything's the same all the time.
Yeah. And like, same thing, as much as I adore Shakespeare and I love Shakespeare to death, I don't understand why we're still teaching kids Shakespeare.
Yeah, no, I don't like Shakespeare, and I'll go down on that hill, mostly because it's hard to understand, it's hard to read, and I didn't study it, and I just can't.
Yeah.
As much as like it feels like saying you're dumb when you say that.
Yeah.
Because it's what you learned in school, but like it's just the truth. Except for the Romeo and Juliet version with Leonardo DiCaprio. That is the best.
Yeah. So, as they are talking about themselves, so like Michael admits the whole thing about English. Tori then says that her birthday is on the same day that Kurt Cobain killed himself, like committed suicide. And she says she hates the way that people like worship him as this like great artist, and sort of like they worship the fact that he was a tormented soul when like really they probably shouldn't. Like that's not something that you should be like, oh my god, he was so amazing and he was so tortured, he just had to commit suicide and that's what makes him great. No, like he probably should have gotten help.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, she's annoyed that people like worship him because he was tormented. And then Michael again shares something else about him. He says that he's really unintelligent, which I find an odd thing to say because he seems like such an intelligent character. Like,
but you can understand why he's saying it,
yes,
as long as your book is the same as mine.
Yes. So like he says that like he understands school material, but when it comes to exams, he says that he doesn't understand what the exam wants him to write. And he feels he just feels like he can't say what he's supposed to say, and that he feels like school doesn't care about him because he can't write things well. And in this age of things, I just feel like that doesn't mean he's not smart. That doesn't mean he's not intelligent.
No, 100% not. And I never once thought that he was unintelligent. I just can see why he thinks that. And I think that, like, if he were in school right now, maybe he would have had accommodations. That,
yes. Yeah.
Like, he might have had to speak his exam, his answer, and then be graded on that instead of having to write.
Yep. And that's a completely valid accommodation that exists. Like, and it's one of those things where, like, you always see that meme where you've got like the monkey, the elephant, like, and a fish, and be like, you wouldn't judge them all on their ability to climb a tree. So like, this is why nowadays we try and differentiate and try and like do different forms of assessments so that, you know, some of the stuff is based on like kinesthetic, like working with your hands. Some stuff is like writing stuff down. Some stuff is reading. Some stuff is listening. Like, you try and vary your assessments so that all kids have the chance to show their own learning. So yeah, like I feel like he needs that.
Yeah. And like, obviously reading this book, you know, he's an intelligent person.
Yeah.
Not that intelligence is also just a hard thing to judge anyway, and I don't know if this is something we want to get into now.
Yeah.
But like, you can't just say, because I have a terrible memory and I found it very hard in school to remember biology or English or French or all that shit, but I was really good at math because I could figure it out and get the answer, and other people were the opposite. And like, that's different kinds of intelligence, but only certain ones work in testing scenarios. So like, it doesn't mean that anybody is dumb.
No.
So I think that it's kind of like when Michael said that everybody has something beautiful or something attractive about them. I think that everybody has something intelligent about them. And like, you can't just say that people are unintelligent. Like, intelligence is, if you look at it just as intelligence, it's something that you gain through, say, schooling or something.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the same opportunities you're not going to gain that. So intelligence isn't something that I think is even valid to look at.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, everything is just so fucked.
Yeah.
Like, let's get into an existential crisis right the fuck now. Like, fuck everything. I'm going home. I'm having a drink. I'm already home. I'm already having a drink. But anyway.
Yeah. Moving on.
Yeah.
So Tori notices as they're talking that his eyes are two different colors. And he says, turns out he doesn't say, but it turns out when he was a toddler, he said when he was around 2, someone threw a rock and hit him in the eye. And I'm like, someone threw a rock at him and hit him in the eye, or someone just happened to throw a rock and it hit him in the eye. And it turns out now he is partially blind in that eye, which is wild.
So fucked up.
Yeah. They're but like it also doesn't really get brought up anymore. Like it doesn't seem to slow him down at all.
No, which I kind of like. It's like nice to have representation of, and like nobody really realized that he was partially blind beforehand.
Anyway, so all of a sudden they're at the part of the movie where the beast dies, and Tori looks over and Michael is crying. And she totally doesn't get it. She's like, why is he crying? And I love it because I also get really emotional at that part, especially like, I just love how it looks when all of a sudden he's got all these lights shining off of him and it looks really cute. Not cute, but like it looks so good.
Yeah.
So yeah. After the movie is over, Michael all of a sudden tells Tori, like, you know, I knew your brother Charlie when he was because I guess Michael used to go to Truham, so he knew
he's a boy.
Yeah. So he knew Charlie, and for some reason this like causes her to not break down, but like it makes her tell him everything about Charlie. I guess she tells him all about like the eating disorder, the OCD, the hospitalization. Like she just gets it all out, which I think she really needed because I don't think she's had anybody that she could really tell that would genuinely listen. Like,
yeah, the only person she talks to is Charlie. So it's hard. Obviously, she's not going to talk to Charlie about Charlie.
No. And like Becky seems like more of a talker than a listener. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
Like,
yeah.
she could tell her about it, but it seems like she wouldn't really listen to what she was saying.
No.
So, yeah. So she tells him everything, and I guess she at least sort of like dozes off in this sort of like half sleep state. And she says it's really weird because she said normally it takes her like ages to fall asleep, and she has to like constantly twist and turn in order to get to sleep. But she's sleeping next to Michael and she's like on his chest, like they're cuddling. And at the end of the last week, she described how when she goes to bed, it feels like there's like this cage on top of her and like the air is slowly starting to like suck out and like she's losing air and like it prevents her from breathing and all that. And she says that with Michael, when she's like curled up next to him and cuddling with him, she says she doesn't hear the demons and she doesn't feel like that cage is there. So it's like, that's wild.
Yeah.
Good for her, I guess. Like,
yeah.
So, anyway, so something happens. I didn't make a note of it, but she vaguely recalls somebody opening up the door, seeing them lying down on the bed, sleeping together, and then closes it again. We don't know who this is.
Yeah, I think it comes back up in my part, maybe. I think we can guess who it is.
Yeah. So, anyway. She wakes up again to a phone call from home at 1:30 in the morning. So again, her parents went out for the night, and they're gone like all night. So when she left to go to the party, she left Charlie and Nick home with Oliver. And I guess they were going to watch Oliver until Tori got home, and Tori's 16, so she was, I guess, like, they were just gonna watch Oliver for the night.
Yeah. So Tori's 16 and Nick is 16 and Charlie is 15.
Yeah.
Or is
Yeah,
Nick might be 17.
Nick might be 17, because I think Charlie is turning 16. I think at the beginning of the Tori said that he'll soon be turning 16, same age as her.
Yeah.
So she answers the phone, and it's Oliver. So he's still awake at 1:30 in the morning.
1:30 in the morning.
And he's 7. That's bad.
That's icky.
Yeah. And he says that there's something wrong with Charlie, and that he's locked himself in the kitchen. And Tori is like panicked, like she's fucked. In a bad, like in a, oh shit, like what is happening sort of a way. I guess Michael has woken up to sort of hear this, and she's like, I need to leave immediately. So she like bolts out of there, and as she's leaving, she runs into Becky, who's loaded. And Becky like stops her on the way out and is saying just like how pretty she is and how beautiful she is. And this sort of gives me like a, are you in love with her sort of a vibe? Like,
no, but when you're drunk,
I know,
and you're like, oh my God, I love you so much. Oh my God, your hair is just so pretty. One thing I do think about the relationship, though, is that Tori is jealous of Becky, but I do think that Becky is jealous of Tori. I think that Becky looks at Tori and she's like, she's so beautiful, and she's not actively trying. And I don't say that in a dismissive way to what Tori is doing, because I know that she is trying, like being in her head, she is trying to be a person. But somebody like Becky, who doesn't necessarily, that we know of, have mental health issues, looks at her and is like, she's so beautiful, and she's not even trying to get a boyfriend.
Yeah.
Is kind of what it feels like.
Yeah.
And I think she might be jealous of how beautiful naturally Tori is.
Yeah. But yeah, so she's like, oh, you're so pretty, you're so beautiful. And then she says something like, I don't want you to be sad anymore. Like, can you please not be sad anymore? And it's sort of like, I wonder if Tori has like, because we're not getting a super clear picture of when this, like, has Tori just always been this way? We know that Lucas said in primary school, obviously she had more of an imagination and stuff like that. But like, Tori maintains, I was always serious. So like, I wonder if these sort of problems, is this a recent thing? Like, did Becky know her before these sort of mental health issues came up? And like, does she see that there's a huge difference? Like, it was really sad to like her being like, please don't be sad anymore. Like, anyway.
Yeah.
But then she also continues on saying that Jack was a bitch and that she deserves someone like Ben now. So, and then again, she says that she loves her and asks her not to be sad anymore.
Yeah.
Which was it was a cute moment. Again, like, it shows us how much Becky actually loves Tori anyway. Like, it sort of doesn't really come across very often because like they don't seem to talk and hang out that much. But
yeah,
it's a nice moment of her being like, no, you are my best friend and I love you to death. Anyway, so I guess Michael showed up at the party on his bike. That's how he got there. So he drives her home on the bike. And initially she's like, I'm not getting on that bike. And he's like, it's faster than walking. So she's like, oh, okay, fine. So she actually gets on the back of his bicycle and he drives.
True.
And I love it. When she gets home, she walks in the door. I guess like Michael did not come in. And Oliver is there and she sends him off to bed immediately. And she goes to get Charlie. And Charlie has barricaded himself in the kitchen, and she's really stressed out that he has hurt himself. He does have a history. Like we said, he's got an eating disorder, he's got mental health issues, and he has a history of self-harm. Um, and when she has to like push her way in because he's barricaded himself in the kitchen.
Mm.
And when she gets in there, he's taken everything out of the fridge, the freezer, and the cupboards and has organized it by size and color. And she says he's obviously been crying and he does have blood on him, so he has hurt himself.
Mhm.
It's important to note that Charlie does have he does have the eating disorder. He also has OCD. Um, so that's why he likes when he gets upset, he needs to put things in order. And because of his eating disorder, it just so happens that the things he likes to put in order are food related.
Yeah.
I guess Tori asks him what happened, and apparently him and Nick argued, and Nick left, and that set Charlie off. And like, I appreciate that, but think of the stress that must put Nick under. Like, it's almost like they're not allowed to fight.
Yeah, I just.
And like, I don't know if that's a controversial thing to say, but like, imagine
No.
the pressure of a 17-year-old realizing, well, if I have something negative going on in my relationship, it's almost like he can't talk about it because he's worried his boyfriend will hurt himself.
100%. It's the same as if you are a young woman in a relationship with a guy and he's like, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
Which is a common thing
Yeah.
for women of our generation who were in shitty relationships. 100%.
Yeah.
Which I obviously, that is not healthy. That is not good. My only issue is reading the graphic novels, and I do understand timeline, like they came out afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Nick would have not left during dinner no matter what. Even if they're arguing, even if like shit is bad. Like, and I know they're only 17, 15, 16-year-old boys. Like it's hard. And you can't expect them not to, like, nobody's mature enough to deal with this type of relationship.
No.
So that is also an issue. But I also like reading the graphic novels, I feel like it's not in Nick's character to leave. And I just felt like this was very odd for him. And I don't think he realized. I like maybe he said something and Charlie took it the wrong way and then was like, yeah, I'm fine. And then Nick left.
Yeah.
But I don't like, I don't understand.
The thing that I also don't understand. So again, we've read the graphic novels, and in fairness, she actually did say that she wrote the graphic novels to be more uplifting and happy. Like she wanted to gloss over the sort of bad parts a little bit more in the graphic novels.
Yeah.
But I don't understand, like, Charlie had a little bit of an eating disorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I say a little bit. He had an eating disorder, but it was not super apparent to his family and friends.
Yeah.
So he did eat. It's just when he was stressed, then he had to control and restrict his eating. So then he actually spent time in a mental health facility.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's out. And all of a sudden now he's having these big, like, sorting things where he has to, like, he's been through so much worse shit than a fight with his boyfriend. Like, he was mercilessly bullied for being gay and tormented, and then, like, kissed against his will by somebody. So, like, I feel like, why is it only now that this whole sorting, it's almost like after treatment now all of a sudden he's worse?
Yeah, and I think that this is just a product of she wrote this book first and now she's trying to write their book beforehand. Like, I do think that this is very much that, because like the Nick that we know from the graphic novels, he wouldn't leave.
No.
Like, I am 100% sure. And I I think that it is very big of him, and I think that it is like very hard for anybody to actually do in a relationship. But I honestly think that he would be like, okay, well, I'm going to sit on this floor in front of the fridge. You can
Yeah.
be mad, you can rage, but I think he wouldn't leave. And I think that is very different than the Nick we're getting now. But I also think like she wrote this book, then she did her graphic novels, which were like the Tumblr
Mm-hmm.
comics.
Mm-hmm.
And like once you get into, so this book is obviously in Tori's point of view. Once you get into other characters' points of view, you learn about them more. And
Yeah.
I think that her characters evolved past what she thought that they would be, and they don't quite match up. And I think that's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Like, obviously, if it makes us love Nick more, really,
Yeah.
and we can't be mad at that. And it makes us love Charlie more.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's an unfortunate situation.
Yeah.
But we also, yeah, we don't, sorry,
Nope.
but we don't know exactly how bad the before shit was yet.
Yeah.
Is the other part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Anyway, so Tori immediately calls Nick, and I love this. She flips out at him for leaving Charlie alone. And like I love that she called him out on it, but at the same time, again, like in my head, this is so much responsibility for teenagers to have. Like
100%.
it's too much for Tori to have, like looking after her 7-year-old brother as well as her 16-year-old brother who's like having trouble. And then it's so much for Nick, who's like, not that he's just the boyfriend, but he's just the boyfriend.
Yeah. And he can't be responsible for how somebody reacts to something that he says or does.
Yeah.
And I empathize with everybody in this situation. This situation is awful.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it's a terrible situation. But so yeah, she flips out at Nick and she's like, you cannot leave him at meal times. So he always needs somebody there during meals.
To be fair, Nick could have called Tori before now, and he probably should have.
Yeah.
Like, realistically, maybe Tori should be around for mealtime if her parents aren't around and Nick isn't around. Like, I don't think that's unrealistic to say. Like,
no, it's true. Nick probably should have called and said, hey, him and I thought I had to leave. Maybe you should go home.
Yeah.
Because then, too, you're leaving a mentally unstable, I'm sorry, Charlie, but like, he's not stable at this moment in time, alone with a 7-year-old to take care of.
Yes.
And
that is like, it's damaging to Oliver, really. Like,
yeah.
Not good.
No, it's very sad.
Yes.
So Nick does come back. I guess he felt bad, and he helps clean up the mess in the kitchen. But Tori says she feels like it's her fault because she left Charlie to go to that party, and she probably shouldn't have. Which, again, is just way too big of an idea for a 16-year-old to have. Like, you should be able to go to a party.
Yeah. She's not his parent.
No.
Like,
and yeah.
Her parents are in the wrong.
Yeah. So the three of them sit and eat beans on toast. But apparently that's really, really hard for Charlie to do. Nick,
which makes sense.
Yeah. Nick does sleep over, and initially he like gets a bed ready on the floor next to Charlie. And I was sort of like, what? He's going to sleep on the floor? Like, the parents aren't home. Like, sleep in the bed. But then I was like, oh, well, maybe they're still like on the rocks or something like that. And Tori sort of tells Charlie, like, I'm going to have to tell mom and dad about this. Charlie then asks her if she's okay. And she tells Charlie she's fine, but obviously we know that she isn't. She's really upset about this whole thing, feels like it's her fault, feels like Charlie is her responsibility. She does call her parents and let them know what happened, and they decide to come home right away. Like, good on them. And like, as much as I'm annoyed at the parents, I also sort of feel bad too, because yeah, like they have teenagers, they want a night out every once in a while, like you are entitled to that. But,
Yeah.
with Charlie in the space he's in, maybe it wasn't the right time.
Yeah. I reading it had weird feelings towards Tori telling on him because I would have just covered it up for my sibling, I am sure.
But like I guess
Which, like, I know it's not healthy and I know, like, it's not in their best interest, but I also would be like, he knows he did wrong. And it's very mature of her, is what I'll say.
yeah.
It's very mature of her and about, like, beyond her age to be able to say, I'm going to tell them,
Mhm.
instead of just being like, it's so much easier for everybody if we just, like, if you say you're sorry, if you say you didn't mean to do it, and we sweep it under the rug. Like, that would have been so much easier. And I have admiration for her for being able to
Yeah.
tell the parents.
Yeah. I think she knows that like he needs the treatment like at this point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think the time for covering shit up is past in
Yeah.
his journey. Like he's already had like a stint at a facility and like all that. So I feel like she knows that that's not really something she can keep to herself. And also, how are you going to hide like his cuts? I just so
How do you hide any teenager's cuts?
So she checks on them again after she's like talked to her parents. She checks on Nick and Charlie, and they are sleeping together, like they're curled together in Charlie's bed. She thinks that she's still mad at Nick, but knows that he really cares for Charlie and knows that he'll make it up to them. Like she knows that he'll redeem himself from this. Again, even though I don't think he was necessarily a terrible person for leaving, like, he's a teenager. He's allowed to have impulsive moments.
Yeah.
She also like her and Charlie are very, very close, and she thinks that he's like really special, and she knows that like he is like her everything. Like they're like closer than any sibling I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Yeah.
she really loves him. So she's in her room, she's pacing, she can't sleep. And she remembers that time that she found Charlie in the bathroom and said there was a lot more blood. So we have a reference, we don't really get we don't really get the whole story. We don't really know when this happened.
But like, I feel like it's a bit of PTSD too for her.
100%.
Like she went through this before and it was obviously not great.
No, traumatic. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So she is in her room, she cries, she listens to music, she stops crying and then she cries again. And then she remembers Becky telling her not to be sad anymore, and like just sort of like is a stark contrast to how she feels right now.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah. Next afternoon, like she is still in bed, like she refuses to get out of bed. And
Fair.
Michael calls her on the phone and asks how she is. Doesn't ask how Charlie is, asks how she is. And I will say this is probably one of my favorite moments from Michael so far. Well, it is actually my favorite moment from Michael so far, but it's probably one of my most favorite ones, like, altogether. So the fact that he's calling to check out, he does ask how Charlie is too, but his first question is for her. And she's so not used to that because she's used to not being second to Charlie, but she is used to everyone being more concerned for Charlie than her because his is a more immediate sort of concern.
Yeah.
Right? He's got more immediate issues than she can hide her issues.
Yeah.
So I love that he asks how she is.
Same.
She's not great, but she lies and says that she's fine. And he immediately knows that that she's lying. He says, "Don't lie." So like he can already tell that she's not good and that she's maybe doing a little bit of a spiral. And so he insists on coming over to hang out. which I love. Like, I love that he's like, no, I'm not allowing this spiral to happen. Like,
Yeah.
hanging out. So he comes over and they drink tea, even though she hates tea. She introduces him to Oliver and they play a little bit. Uh, Oliver asks if Michael is Tori's boyfriend, which makes both of them laugh. And Tori says that it's the first time that Michael has actually seen her genuinely laugh. Because I think she is a very different person around her family, and especially around her two brothers, than she is around other people.
Yeah.
I feel like she's way more herself.
Yeah.
So they spend the day together, like watching movies. Michael teaches her how to bake a cake. Michael like reads a book while she takes a nap. They play with Oliver. So like right now, her parents and Charlie are gone to the hospital for the day to have some tests and everything like that because of the last night's thing. Yeah. So they're just alone in the house. So yeah, they do all kinds of fun things. And like he just spends all day there.
Which I think is probably so good for Oliver.
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed.
After last night.
Yeah. Especially since Tori was in bed until like 2:00 in the afternoon and like the parents were out. So that means what? Oliver was just like hanging around the house by himself?
He might have been asleep too. He was up till 1:30.
Good point. So the parents come home and Charlie comes home. Charlie just goes right to his room and they meet Michael and like he's perfectly nice to them and they're perfectly okay with the fact that he spent all day at their house. My parents would not have been okay with that.
No.
If I had a boy.
I don't think so either.
No. Next morning, she wakes up like super, super early at like 7:00. And for some reason, she decides she's going to walk to Michael's house. So like she gets up, gets ready, has her breakfast, like, and then just walks to his house. He lives on like this cliff area. It's like the only cliff in town. And like she goes to his house and it's like 9:00 in the morning. And it's a Sunday. And she's like, oh no, he's definitely not awake. It's 9 a.m. on a Sunday. So she turns around and is going to leave. And like, I guess he saw her from the window.
Yeah.
Because he comes out and he's like, oh my God, Tori, you're here. Like, I can't believe you're here. Like, you're actually here at my house. And she's like, yeah, like, sorry. But like the way I read it, it's like, almost like it was a gift to him that she actually came to his house.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but yeah, so like she's really apologetic about being there. She's like, sorry, like I can go again. Like I don't have to stick around. And he's very like, no, like I want you to stay. So she asks if he wanted to go out today. She just said, I want to go out today. Yeah. And I'm like, the way he said it and the way she says it, and I guess, I don't know if I'm just projecting, but like she says it as if it's sort of date-ish, like, you know, like you want to go out with me. Yeah. Is a romantic connotation. But like, I think she just means it in a, do you want to go out today? Like not a date, just out and about.
Yeah. And getting out of my house kind of way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's like wondering what his room would be like and what his house would be like. But, like, he doesn't invite her in at all. Even though he just spent all day yesterday in her house. He does not invite her into his house.
Do we get anything about his home life?
This is what I'm wondering.
I can't remember reading this book if we do, but I think it's not good.
Yeah, I agree. Like, doesn't seem like, because he doesn't like talking about his home life. He doesn't like talking about his anything personal like that. So I can't imagine it's great.
Yeah. Okay. We're on the same page.
Yeah. So again, he's like super amazed and excited. He just grabs his jumper. His hair is a mess. So she does this typically very romantic gesture of like brushing a strand of hair out of his face and like writing it. And like he like blushes that she's touching him. And all of a sudden she's like, oh shit, what did I just do? But then like they still grab hands and like get ready to go on their daytime adventure, which is lovely.
Yeah.
And they have a really nice, like, I know you're gonna get into it, but they have a really nice time.
They do. And I guess my part starts with like them walking hand in hand, and Tori immediately thinks like, this is not romantic though. I'm like,
isn't it?
but then she also starts to think about how she doesn't know Michael at all, which is an interesting thing. I think she's very much in her own head, which I think a lot of teenagers are. So like, no judgment at all. But it's just interesting that she thinks that. So they go to a cafe and Tori asks him why he changed schools. And he kind of cringes a bit. And she realizes, like, oh, maybe that's not something easy to answer. But he says he didn't get on with anyone at his school. So figured he might get along with the girls. But then he says that he doesn't. And his personality is like too fantastical for everybody. Which, like, I don't feel like it is. I don't know. He doesn't, like, I get that he says some weird things, but it doesn't seem that crazy. But she does feel sad for him, and, like, she's kind of shocked that, like, her sadness is not the normal self-inflicted kind. She, like, feels an emotion for somebody else, which is nice, I guess.
Yeah. She's emoting.
She's emoting.
Maybe not outwardly, but inwardly.
Yeah. She even thinks that like she's interested in him as a person, which is different for her. And she asks him like what he's doing next year, like if he's going to university. And he's a bit wishy-washy about it. But then he says like, it's too late to apply now. Like the deadline was yesterday for the school near them. And she's surprised that the school didn't just make him apply. But he says that like school can't make you do anything. And she's kind of like a bit shocked by this because I don't think that it really crossed her radar before, which I feel like I was that type of kid in school
like,
that
what?
like if someone was like, really, they can't make us, I would have been like that.
Yeah, me too.
She does ask him why he didn't just apply for some universities and like see what happens, and he says he hates school and he doesn't see the point in going, and that not everybody has to, which I think is like very important. I don't think everybody does need to go to university, and it's a good thing to say. He says he'll probably stick to sports, and she asks what he does, and he says speed skating, which I kind of think is super cool. I don't know if it's like, is it a bigger sport in England than it is here?
I don't think so.
I don't either, but it's like so like not a normal sport that you'd think of, and I love that he speed skates. So he says it would be cool to be a speed skater, but that stuff is very hard, which is like, yes, obviously like actually being one of the top people in a sport is going to be very hard.
But like he doesn't seem like your typical like he's really good at this. Like he is like in the top. So like,
yeah.
And he says that he like this is what he wants to do for a living. So like he must be good, and it blows my mind because he doesn't seem like your typical like, you know, you could usually tell who plays sports and who doesn't.
Yeah, but it's also different when your sport is outside of the school. Because like when I was in high school, I swam 8 times a week. I swam 4 mornings before school, but I wasn't a jock because my sport wasn't a part of the school.
True.
So yeah, I think if his sport had anything to do with his school, he would be so much more popular, which is so crazy.
Yeah.
He asked Tori what they should do next, and Tori says that apparently Empire Strikes Back is playing in the cinema, and he's like, "Oh, you're a Star Wars fan?" And she's like, "Yes." And then Michael's brain starts to turn, and then he starts to put some things together in his head, and he's like, he asks her if she likes cats, if she likes Madonna, if she likes Justin Timberlake, and she kind of thinks he's going a bit crazy, but then he explains that like these are all Solitaire's pranks, like is it to do with her, like what is going on? And she's like, oh no, it's just a huge coincidence, like.
But also she likes cats, but like, could we say that like cats are her thing? Like, is that a part of her personality that she likes cats? Like,
Yeah.
she like, who doesn't like Madonna? Who's like not a super like, who's not mildly a fan
Who
of Justin
didn't like
Timberlake?
Sexy Back?
Yeah,
Who?
like
Yeah, 100%.
it just
It is very loose.
yeah.
It's very
Like, I
loose.
feel like you
But
could ask anybody
obviously,
that. You could ask me that. That doesn't mean Solitaire's about me.
yeah. And obviously, Solitaire is very forefront on Michael's mind, which is also important to
Mm-hmm.
note. Um, and yeah, obviously, she does explain it away by a big coincidence, and like many people would be that way. And she asks him why he cares anyway. And he says he just gets curious about things and he wants to know. And he says he has a pretty sad life otherwise. And she almost gets excited because she agrees that she does too.
Mm-hmm.
Which this was another line that kind of made me think that maybe his home life is not great.
Yeah.
When they leave the cafe, Michael buys an older lady there a pot of tea, which I think is kind of sweet.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of think that his family may be rich based on a few lines in the book.
Oh, yeah.
Afterwards, they go to the rink so Michael can show her his skating skills. And he knows all the staff there and they all high five him. And then they high five Tori too because she's with him and she kind of thinks that like it's kind of cool, which I like.
Mm-hmm.
And Tori says that Michael is an insane skater and he just flies past her as she falls like 7 times. And it seems like and I say this word, but I don't mean it this way, but like he like shows off for a bit.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in a bad way, but more in a like...
He takes joy out of going fast around the rink.
Yeah, and showing her his skill. Like,
Yeah.
It's not bad to be good at something, and we shouldn't... Like, showing off has such a negative connotation, but it probably shouldn't, because, like... Anyway, he just wants to show her what he can do, and I think it's sweet. But after that, he helps Tori skate around, holding her hand, and, like, he skates backwards and, like, helps her with it. And then they go to all of the antique shops in town. I don't know how many there are, but it seems like a lot. And Tori plays an old violin, and she's surprised by how much she can remember. And Michael plays the piano to, like, kind of accompany her. They go back to the cafe for lunch, and then they do go to the cinema, and they do see Empire Strikes Back. And then Dirty Dancing comes on after, which Tori doesn't like Dirty Dancing.
I do.
I don't really know if I've seen it.
Oh my God.
Honest. I'm sorry. But
I've had the time of my life.
I know the song. I know the dance. So during Dirty Dancing, someone messages Tori's blog and asks why people leave newspapers on the train. And it's an anonymous message, but it's very similar to the one that she got before about parting for ambulances.
Mm-hmm.
But she shows it to Michael and he thinks it's a great question, but she disagrees and just deletes it like she did the other one. Afterwards, they go back to the Dying Sun Cliff, which is what's
the cliff
like
where
the cliff's name. Yeah. And they dangle their legs over the edge. And Tori says that she loves it here. Michael says that the sun is setting, and Tori says the sun also rises. And he is shocked because she hates literature, but he asks her who wrote that book. And when she responds, he asks her to name 3 more books by Hemingway.
I had to read.
And she can.
I had to read that book in university.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I wasn't a fan.
Yeah, I didn't read it, but I had a pretentious boyfriend when I was a bit younger and he was a bit older and he gave it to me and I was like, ooh. Then he tests her with other novel names and she knows all of the authors. And like, I was a bit impressed in this part because like some of them I didn't even know who the author was.
All classic literature too, like nothing. Like...
Yes. And then Tori in her head kind of admits that if she got past the beginning of books, she might like them, but they're not like movies. And she says in movies, you can watch and like detach, but in books, you're inside the main character's head. And it's like obviously so much harder to detach. So I think that's really her issue is she doesn't want to be in other people's heads, or she doesn't like feel comfortable in other people's heads. It's kind of what it feels like. Michael asks her if she's ever had a boyfriend, and she says, obviously not. And he calls her a sexy beast, which I love.
Yeah.
But she says that she's single and thriving. And then they both like burst into giggles because obviously she's not thriving.
Mm-hmm.
And like, yeah.
She is single.
She is single. Michael then asks the question we're all thinking about, which is her and Becky actually being friends, which like a little bit less after their scene at her party. But Michael just says like they don't really talk much or hang out a lot. And Tori kind of says like maybe that's why they're best friends, because they don't need to like talk much anymore. And she kind of goes on to say that she's boring, so it makes sense that like Becky has more friends. But
yeah,
Michael disagrees and says that like she is the opposite of boring. So like Michael obviously thinks a lot of Tori. And he tells her that he thinks that she's a really good friend and that Becky is lucky. And in Tori's head, she thinks she'd be nothing without Becky. And sometimes thinking about Becky makes her tear up because she loves her so much, which I think is really nice in a friendship. Like I love that.
Yeah,
I love that they presumably love each other that much.
I know this is another moment where we actually see like the depth of, because Tori just seems a little bit flippant when she talks about Becky and like when she interacts with Becky, but this is sort of a glimpse into how much Becky actually means to her.
Yeah. And I think part of the issue is that Tori is going through a like depression period in her life, and she's not interacting with many people well. And I think that's why we aren't seeing the connection with Becky, but like this actually makes you feel that their connection is so real. But yeah, so out loud to Michael, she says that it's the other way around. Like she is so lucky to have Becky. Lying on the cliff, she thinks about how much she wanted to be a Jedi when she was younger and how she would have had a green lightsaber, which is just an interesting tidbit. Michael walks her home, and when they get there, he gives her a hug and asks if she thinks that they're friends now. And she tells him it's like he really wants to be her friend. And then she kind of immediately regrets it because it's a bit of a dick thing to say. And she says it seems like he's doing all this trying to be her friend for himself. But he says that like all friendships are selfish. Like if people were selfless, they would just leave each other alone.
But you surround yourself with people that make you feel good.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, of course, friendship is that way.
She also thinks in her head that she doesn't really know why she can't just say that they're friends, but she doesn't say it out loud. He asks himself out loud if it's time to give up, but then he just answers, no, it isn't, which is just like, it's kind of a bit weird too. So she tells him it's like he's in love with her, and he says there's no reason he couldn't be. So she asks if he is, and he says it's a mystery, and she says she'll take that as a no. And that really annoys him. Like, it was kind of surprising.
This argument comes out of nowhere.
Like, it's almost like he's so pissed at her because she thinks so low of herself, which is just so like...
Yes.
It's wild. He says, of course she is. Like, she didn't even need to ask the question, really. And that kind of pisses Tori off. She tells him she knows she's pessimistic, but she isn't a maniacally depressed psychopath. And he snarls at her and he says, maybe she is. He says the whole phrase. But I said it once without screwing it up, so that's good enough for me. It really takes her aback that he says that, and it makes her want to throw up. And she just turns around on her heels and walks into the house.
Is it the idea that she's depressed that she is so, like, against? Or the idea that she's a psychopath? Or is it both put together?
Yeah, I don't really know. I guess, like, maybe that's kind of something that she fears because she is the one that said, but I'm not. And then she said that. So I wonder if that is, like, something that she actually does fear people thinking she is. And she actually thinks that, like, maybe Michael doesn't think that. But yeah, I don't know. I know that I'm old now, but I feel like I wouldn't care if somebody said that to me. But in high school, of course, I definitely would have.
Even if it like hit really close to home.
Well,
and identified something that you weren't willing to admit to.
I guess if I actually was a psychopath, I suppose.
Yeah.
But I don't think I am. But if, like, somebody yelled it at me and I was like, oh my God, you're right. Maybe it would. Anyway. So as soon as Tori gets in the house, she goes to Charlie's room and he's at Nick's place, and she gets her laptop and just lies in his bed and scrolls her blog. And she just thinks about how she ruined it with Michael, and she wonders if he'll even talk to her tomorrow. But she knows it's like, this is her fault and everything is her fault, which is a very sad place to be.
Yeah.
She also starts wondering how much Becky will talk about Ben tomorrow, and, like, how she has no one else to hang out with, and how she just wants to stay home forever. She just thinks of, like, how she's a dreadful person because she's kind of jealous of Becky, so she can't really be happy for her right now, even though Becky's happy. And then she has to, like, kind of deal with the happiness in her face, and not in a, like, Becky is doing it on purpose kind of way, but, like, she just knows that that's what it's going to feel like.
Yeah.
So the next day at school, Becky is with Ben, Hope, whose name has to be a Star Wars reference. Like, it just has to be a Star Wars reference. There's no way it's not. But anyway, Becky finally sees her and kind of gives her a forced hello, which is a bit weird. Like, they are friends, but I guess she's just so into Ben right now that she doesn't want to talk to
Listen,
Tori.
We've all had that one friend. We've all had that friend who's crazy boy crazy and forgets you exist the minute they get a boyfriend in high school.
Yeah, that's true.
This Becky is that friend. Not that she's not a good friend.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying she is that girl.
Mm-hmm.
Always has to be talking to some guy.
Yeah. It's true. Ben introduces himself to Tori, but she tells him that they have English and math together. And it's just, like, so typical high school, like, in books and stuff. It always happens like that.
Oh, yeah. Like, it's really funny because my husband and I were the same thing. I say, like, I knew he existed, but we didn't get together until after high school.
Yeah.
But we went through grade 7 to, well, he was a year older than me, so grade 7 to 11, 8 to 12 for him.
Yeah.
And he says he didn't know me. He had no idea who I was.
It happens. Tori introduces herself to him because obviously he can't be bothered to know who people are. Yeah. And she says that she's Tori Spring, and he asks if she's Charlie Spring's sister. And he's like the Charlie Spring who's with Nick Nelson? And she's like, yes. And his face changes and he starts to look anxious, but she doesn't really react to what he said. So he just goes on and tells Becky, like, it's a small world kind of thing. Yeah. So clearly there's something there.
Yes.
Becky asks if Tori did the sociology homework, and she says yes, but Becky says she and Ben were busy.
Oh, quote unquote.
Yeah. And like their friend Evelyn turns around and asks them why they're so adorable. And Tori, of course, gives Becky her homework to copy and just asks for it back in class. And Becky thanks her and calls her hun, which is weird for her. So there's something weird happening with their relationship.
Yeah.
It's just a bad time, too, because, like, we're only getting a snapshot into the relationship, but it really seems like Becky is being a bit of a bitch. Like, she's using Tori for her homework, and she doesn't even really want to talk to her. So it's weird. Like, I'm sure there's other parts of their friendship that we don't see that are good, but Lucas comes up to her when she's at her locker, and she tries to talk to him because she feels bad for him. And they talk a bit about Becky's party, and he says he went home early and that she disappeared. And she kind of wonders if he saw her with Michael go upstairs. And she tells him that she went home too, but she can tell he knows that she's lying, which is interesting.
It's not clarified at this point, but we have to wonder, was he the one that opened the door and saw them, like,
yes, exactly,
sleeping and / snuggling?
Yeah, which, like, if he left early doesn't seem likely, but who knows? Maybe he's lying too. Maybe it's all a bunch of lies. He he tells her he doesn't know if Becky will like his gift, which is just like, I didn't realize people were bringing gifts to this party where everyone was drinking. Did Tori even bring a gift? But clearly this whole thing is just a segue for him to say that he was always good at getting gifts for Tori. And then he remembers her birthday and says, like, it's April 5th. And then after a pause, he tells her his is October, because he assumes she forgot, and she did. Like, it was years ago. But also, some people's brains don't work that way. Yeah. Like, they're not good with birthdays and dates and stuff. So
I'm only mediocre at it.
I am awful. I forget Jeff's. It's 2 days before mine. It's December 22nd. Like, if I ever have to fill something out, I'm like, is it the 22nd or the 23rd? And then I'm like, what year is it? Because that is just gone forever.
Sid's like that with my birthday.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, is it the 12th? The 11th? I'm like, no, you're a jackass. I hate your guts.
See, I can't get mad at anybody for that because that's me. It's also my dad, so I come by it honestly. Solitaire ends up striking again, and all the computers in the school will only show a picture of Jake Gyllenhaal shirtless. So, like, all the IT classes are canceled because of that, because they obviously can't use the computers.
Love it.
Yeah. By lunchtime, Kent has, like, taken things up a notch, and Tori ends up in, like, a student interview. And I'm guessing that, like, every single student in this school is getting an interview, which is a bit wild.
I mean, I don't think they would do every student in the school. I think they do all the older kids.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I don't think, because, like, this is, I don't know, at least a 7 to 12. 7 to 13. Yeah.
I'd assume it's, like, all of it.
Oh,
How many schools do they have? I don't know.
That's true. But I'm just saying, obviously, I don't think they can attribute it to, like, a year 7 or a year 8. I think they would go 10 and up is what I would think.
That makes sense. Like, while she's in this room, it's not just Kent. Somebody else is there, too. And that person tells her it's safe, anonymous space and asks her if she knows anything. And she doesn't tell them about the meetup or the computer room. But, like, did none of the teachers check the blog? Like, wouldn't they have seen the address? Can't they check the blog as well?
You would think.
Right?
Smart teachers can.
Yeah, so why did none of the teachers know about the party meetup thing? It just seems odd that they wouldn't have seen, because, like, at the end of everything, it's like the blog name, and also you'd think if you just Googled Solitaire, the blog would probably come up.
Yeah. I'll be honest though, these teachers at this school, they don't seem awesome in general.
Yeah. But then there's also the students that are actively trying to help, like the prefects and stuff. Like you think that they would tell about the party, but maybe they also want to go to a party. So, Anyway, Kent tells her she can leave, but to keep her eyes opened. And then he says, even though she isn't a prefect, he tells her to be alert and they can't have things getting any worse.
Dun, dun, dun. It's right? Very ominous.
It is very ominous. I guess later, or maybe it might even be the next day or something, because she's using a computer at school. But Tori is at a computer and she's looking at a blog when her lot comes in after lunch, and Becky comes over and asks what she's doing. And she says it's an English essay due tomorrow on the heroes in Pride and Prejudice, which I would read them. Becky says she'd rather live her life now than worry about doing schoolwork. So obviously she's very much into Ben and doesn't want to deal with essays. So
my parents would have me destroyed.
Oh my God, I'd be murdered. Dead.
Yeah. Like, I was the kid who if I came home with like a 90, my dad would be like, where'd the other 10% go?
Yeah.
Right? Like, it wasn't oh, that's so good. It'd be like, good, but where's the other 10%? So, like, if I can't imagine not passing something in at the deadline.
Oh my God, no. I'd be murdered.
Now, deadlines don't exist.
Yeah. I feel like this is before that happened. And I also don't know what it's like in England anyway. Maybe deadlines still exist there. Who knows? Becky tells Tori how happy she is with Ben, and Tori tries to be happy for her and like says that she is, but she can tell that Becky doesn't believe her. And Tori kind of wants to tell her it's because it makes her feel like a failure, but like she can't say that, which is really sad, but it's obviously driving a wedge in their relationship because they're both like, Becky thinks that Tori doesn't care, where it's not even really about Becky. Mm-hmm. Anyway, bad. It's not great. Becky asks Tori what she did all weekend, and Tori lies and says, not much, you know me. And Becky's like, yep, that sounds about right. Mm-hmm. But then she tells her if she tried, she could get a boyfriend really easily. And like, that's not, I don't know. I know that's partially what's Tori's problem. Like, it's not even that. It's just that Tori doesn't know what she wants. It's not that she wants a boyfriend necessarily. She just doesn't know if she even wants one. But I don't think it's great advice. I don't think she knows her friend very well.
No.
She's like, if you could just be happy, if you could just, but she's a teenager too. Like, everybody's so into their own shit at that time. Like, I don't know.
No.
Anyway.
And to be fair, for some of us, getting a boyfriend was sort of like peak, like, oh my God, I've made it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, she's feeling that high. Becky is right now. Like,
that's true. Yeah.
So she's probably thinking Tori could be happy if she also had that, like.
Yes. Because, like, it's really hard to even grasp that things make other people happy than what makes you happy when you're an adult, let alone when you're a teenager. So, yes, that's fair. Tori tells her that she doesn't really need a boyfriend. And then the Pips, I think it's called, which I'm assuming is just the bell, go, and Tori prints her essay and goes to form, but she sees Michael and it hurts her like soul so much that she just walks right out of the school, and she ignores him when he asks where she's going. So she just walks all the way home and goes to bed until her mom wakes her up for supper. That night, the whole family goes to Charlie's appointment with his psychiatrist at the eating disorder clinic, and Nick stays at home with Oliver. Their parents go in first to talk to the counselor, so Tori and Charlie are alone. And Charlie kind of breaks the silence and asks why they haven't been talking since Friday, which was obviously the incident. And she says she doesn't know, and he says that she's angry at him. but she really isn't. And she does do a good job of like telling him that. She tells him like it's not his fault. He doesn't
Yeah.
really agree with her, but he does kind of let it go.
Yeah. And we're talking about the whole incident with the food,
Yes.
like on the night of the party. Yeah.
Yeah. He asks what she's been up to, and she tells him that she's been hanging out with Michael. And then he kind of like lifts his eyebrows at her, and
Yeah.
she's like, "No, we're not dating or anything."
Yeah.
She also tells him that he called her a maniacally depressed psychopath, and that Becky is dating Ben Hope, and that's all that she talks about. And she says she hasn't talked to her parents since Saturday. And it's like she really does unload everything onto Charlie, which not in a bad way, but it's just like when she doesn't talk to him for a while, I feel like it all gets built up inside of her and makes it worse. So I feel like she really does need him.
But like I also can't imagine living in the same house with people and then not talking to them for like several days. Living in the same house.
Yeah, I don't know. I did it with my parents.
In high school?
Yeah.
Like I did if my parents were like gone for the weekend or something like
Yeah.
that. But like if they were home and like cooking supper and stuff.
But like I guess Saturday they were gone all day, and then Sunday she was hanging out with Michael all day. She wasn't even home. And then like it's just I think this might even just be Tuesday, so it's not even and she says she hasn't really talked to their parents, and I'm like,
yeah, I guess.
That's different than just a like supper's ready or whatever. Charlie kind of says like that is a lot of stuff. And then he kind of gets stuck and asks if Becky is dating Ben Hope, like the same one from Truum. And he says that they were kind of friends, but that they aren't anymore. And that's kind of where he drops it. Yeah. So there's still a mystery with Ben Hope. Charlie tells her that he's staying off school again tomorrow. And he says that their parents are blowing it out of proportion. But Tori doesn't really agree. She says, obviously, like he had a self-harm relapse. Like it's not blowing it out of proportion. No. And he just calls himself a drama queen, which I thought was kind of cute. She asks if he wants her to get the bus with him when he goes back to school the day after tomorrow. And she says normally she walks because she hates the bus, but Charlie gets the bus. So he says that he'd like that. And it's like, obviously people are going to be wondering why he was off school. And like he had 2 months off before and everybody found out why. So like, it's got to be hard going back to school after that.
Yeah.
He also tells her that she should give Michael a chance. And he knows he and Nick think he's weird, but he said that Michael's like proven he's okay. And she needs to start accepting things like this and not play everything out in her head. And it's just kind of a like drastic turn from where him and Nick were the other day about like, stop talking to him and stuff. But I am glad that they did it because I was like,
yeah,
a bit annoyed that they were so against him. She kind of asks him like if it's a bad thing to play stuff out in her head. And he says that's how you end up in one of these psychiatric wards. So
yeah.
Yeah, that's a bit of a kick to her, really. The next day in school, the fire alarm goes off and she hears a rumor about a fire in Kent's office, but she's not sure she believes it. But that would be pretty shitty. She looks at a form near her and she sees Michael and he looks disheveled and almost like he's going to cry while he's reading a book, which is interesting. And I don't know if we ever hear more on it.
No.
She also sees Lucas and Evelyn, and then and she says that Lucas looks sad too, and she just thinks that like everyone and everything is just so sad, which is just a really sad place to be. Like maybe it's just cold outside. Maybe nobody's sad right now. They're just very cold.
But it's also like reoccurring thing of like she thinks literally everything and everyone is just sad all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it is projection on her part. But yeah. She says she doesn't want to think about the boys anymore, so she pulls up the Solitaire blog and she sees a photo of a hand reaching towards a fire alarm, asking, quote, "Do I dare disturb the universe?" And she knows the two lines are from a poem, but she doesn't know how she knows that, and it makes her feel claustrophobic. Which is interesting. She gets home that night and says, like, everything's normal. She says hi to Nick and Charlie. She gets her laptop, puts a movie on, and then she does something weird and calls Michael. Which is very out of character for her because she hates the telephone. Like,
yes,
a lot
she
of
does.
People. He's surprised. And I feel like she's like a big person here. Like, she apologizes to him, which I think is like good for her.
Yeah.
He does too, and he also says that he doesn't even know why they were even arguing, which I agree with, but is also common in high school, like stupid arguments over nothing. Tori tells him she wants to be friends, and he tells her that they already are, which is cute, but also it's kind of funny. Yeah. He asks if she'll still come to the Solitaire party because he doesn't want to go alone, and she says yes. And she kind of asks, like, she says that she can hear wind and asks where he is. And he is at the rink skating while on the phone with her. Which is like, I'd die. I can't skate and hold a phone.
I would also die. I can't, listen, I can't skate at the best of times.
Same.
Like, I can't even skate holding onto the rail.
I'm a tiny bit better than that, but not much. I'm not a good skater.
No.
She can hear the music, though, playing at the rink through the phone, and she knows it's from the Gladiator. Like, her mind is wild in what she can remember. But she can't remember Lucas's birthday. So. Michael tells her film knowledge is magical, and then tells her that she is magical. And I'm like, that's just so sweet. It was like a sweet moment they had. She tells him he's the one that can skate, which is as close to flying as humans can get without a vehicle. Which is like cute too. But she's like, you can fly. And he kind of says, like, he says, no one's ever ... And I don't know if it was like a no one's ever said that to him before, or no one's ever cared about his skating before, or like, it again makes me wonder about his home life.
Yeah, I agree. And also, like, I feel for him.
Yeah. And then they both say that they should meet at Hogwarts, Neverland, or both, which is kind of cute.
For someone who hates books, she makes a lot of literary references.
Yes, she does. On, I guess, Wednesday morning, Tori's on the bus with Charlie, and she's feeling calm, which is not normal for her on the bus because she normally hates it. She says she doesn't know, like, she thinks she doesn't know why she made such a fuss about Michael. And then she's like, oh yeah, I do. It's because I'm such an idiot. And it's like, she really berates herself all the time, and it's really sad.
Mm-hmm.
In math class that day, her teacher decides that they need to sit next to different people, and she ends up next to Ben Hope, which I hate. Like, I hated when teachers were like that, and they were like, you need to talk to different people than your clique. I'm like, this is math class. Like, I don't need to talk to anybody. Just give me the math.
No. So
you do that?
Not in that way. I don't like change up the seating plan and put kids next to strangers because I'm like, You need to learn to talk to other people. No, I do it so that they specifically won't talk to other people if they're being loud in class.
Well, yes, yeah. But this is like, I think this situation is they're supposed to sit with somebody and work together, it seems like.
Yeah, no. I'm not that mean.
Yeah, I just feel like that's not necessary. Also, not much math homework or work needs to be done in pairs. Anyway, the teacher leaves to make photocopies, and Ben starts to ask Tori how Charlie is, and she's kind of like, he's okay. And she tells him Charlie said they had been friends ish, and he agrees, but also says, like, everyone knows Charlie. And, like, she kind of thinks, like, yeah, it's true, because you can't take 2 months off of school and people not notice, really.
Yeah.
She then asks Ben if, like, everybody at school, at his old school, liked Charlie. And she kind of assumes that they do, because, like she said in the beginning, like, she thinks that he's a really nice person, and, like, she thinks that he's popular. She thinks he has a lot of friends. She thinks of him as, like, outgoing and loved, and it's kind of like in opposition to herself.
Yeah.
He kind of scoffs and says, not everyone exactly. And then he kind of covers for himself and just says, no one can be liked by everybody. And he also just says he doesn't really know Charlie anymore. And I think that's kind of surprising for Tori, but it's also just a bit odd. Like, why is he asking about Charlie, and why is he saying this to his sister?
I feel like it's a bit of a dick move in general. Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, if you don't like somebody and the sister comes up and says, oh, did everybody like my brother in school? You're not going to say, well, not everyone. No, you're going to be like, oh, yeah. Like, unless the next thing you want to do is come out and say, I hated your brother. He was an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, why would you say, well, it's impossible to be liked by everyone? You're essentially pointing a finger at yourself saying, I hated him.
Exactly, yeah. Which is, I think, the point of that conversation. Tori is in the common room, and Lucas comes over to her, and he looks happy, which is kind of a trigger for her, really, which is interesting.
Yeah.
He asks her what she's doing Saturday, and she says that she has plans that night, but is free that day. And he asks if she wants to watch movies at his place or something. And she asks if Evelyn is okay with that. And he's kind of confused, but she just says, aren't you guys together? Because they've kind of been, like, spending a bit of time. And, like, maybe Evelyn has a crush. I wouldn't be surprised. But anyway, he says no. They aren't. Becky sees them and asks what they're talking about, and Tori puts her legs on Lucas's lap and says, obviously they're flirting, and laughs. But I know she probably thinks that this is just all fun and games, but, like, I feel like Lucas actually is flirting, and that's, like, making him, I don't know. He probably thinks that, like, she's all for it and wants to date him. And it's just, like, obviously you need to ask people and have a conversation about that before you assume. So that's bad on his part. But it's just going to make it, I think, more awkward in the future for her, which she's not going to like.
Yeah. I will say I really enjoy her attempt at, like, she's really trying to fit in, like, not that I'm applauding her for fitting in, but she's so much at the I don't care, the I'm not going to bother, the I'm not going to talk to people. So, like, this interaction was a really different take on Tori.
Yeah. But it kind of shows that, like, she has a sense of humor, even if other people don't really get it.
Yeah.
Yeah. She sees Michael in the hallway, and he asks if she's free Saturday, but she says she's hanging out with Lucas, and he says, oh, it's all good. And he says, as long as she doesn't bail on going to the Solitaire party with him. So we don't find out what he was going to ask her to do. she asks if she has to go to the party since she doesn't give a single fuck about Solitaire. And he says he knows, but she knows that means like she still needs to go with him, like she said she would. He tells her to go to his place Saturday after her and Lucas are done canoodling, which is interesting too. Like I don't feel like Michael is jealous at all at the thought of her going out with Lucas.
But I wonder if that's because he knows that she's not interested in Lucas that way.
Yeah, could be. That's a good point.
Or do you just think that he's just not interested in her romantically?
I don't know what I think. I was just noting the difference between the relationships and like the jealousy between the guys. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Glad I cleared that up with nothing.
Right. Yes. A non-answer answer.
Exactly. It's Friday, and Tori kind of says that she's been getting the bus all week because it's good to spend time with Charlie and talk during the rides. She walks to Truham to meet him that afternoon after school.
Yeah.
And Michael is with her, and they meet Nick at the gate, and Nick and Michael kind of introduce themselves-ish to each other. Like they know each other, but they don't know each other well. So they kind of say each other's names, really. That's what it is. Michael acts pretty normal, according to Tori, and he tells Nicholas Nelson that he has a great name, and Nick laughs, and like they kind of get along a bit. So I don't know if I just feel like Nick gets along with everybody.
Yeah, he is a golden retriever.
Exactly. Tori kind of wonders where Charlie is, and Nick says that he loves classics, so he's likely talking to his teacher about Greek stuff. I'm like, why do they have such cool high school classes?
I know.
Classics and sociology, and like, why didn't we have anything cool?
Reading Pride and Prejudice?
Yeah. It's like, our high school was not that cool.
No.
Becky shows up at Truham, which is odd, and she says that she'll wait with them since Ben is apparently there getting something from last year. And then, of course, Lucas shows up, and he is like best friends with Nick. They like even hug.
Yeah.
And which was interesting, but I'm like, why did he leave that school if he was like best friends with the popular kid?
Anyway. I don't know. I really hope it wasn't for Tori.
Yeah.
Well, oh my God, I'm in year 12. I can finally reconnect with my long lost love.
Like, why wouldn't he just... And maybe people don't know that Tori is Charlie's sister, but if you knew her as a kid, you'd probably know. Like, just...
That's true. Good point,
go over to Charlie's house and be friends with her again that way.
That's true, yeah.
That would probably have worked even better, because she's, like, more normal and comfortable. Not normal, but she's more like herself and comfortable at home than she is at school anyway. So she might have even become friends with him again. Anyway, long rant over. Tori can tell that Lucas is like purposely ignoring Michael, which is just high school.
Very high school. Like, Lucas can't handle Tori. I'll say this. If he's into her, there's no way he could handle her just because of the way he's dealing with this whole situation.
Yes. And like the conversations that they've had before, and her being like, yeah, well, I grew up. And like, she has a lot going on herself mentally, but also with her family. If she is going to have somebody in her life who is supportive to her, she needs somebody who is mature enough and strong enough to help her.
Yeah.
So I agree. I don't think he'd be a good match. Lucas asks them what they're all doing there, and they say waiting for Charlie, and Becky says waiting for Ben. Lucas asks why they aren't like going to look for them, and says he's going to get his GCSE coursework, and apparently that's why Ben is there too. And Tori kind of notices that Nick frowns at Ben's name and kind of wonders like what's going on.
Yeah.
So they all start walking together towards I guess, the classics classroom or something.
Yeah.
And Tori says that being in the school reminds Tori why she didn't want to go here. Like, it makes her feel claustrophobic. And Michael mentions, like, the building, it seems like it's built out of misery. So it kind of seems like this school is sketchier than the girls' school, or like
it might have just been like maybe it's older and built first, and like
that's a good point.
Maybe a bit more prison like.
Yeah, that's kind of what it seems like. Tori notices people giving Michael a weird look, and like a group even yells out to him and calls him a wanker. And Michael just turns around and gives them a double thumbs up. And I'm like, what a great attitude.
You know what? The next time, not that it happens to me very often. Actually, it hasn't happened in ever. But the next time anyone calls me a name, that's what I'm going to do.
That's a good point.
Especially if it's a student.
Yeah. That's a good thing to do if it's a student. It reminds me of Ted Lasso. Of Ted Lasso. Of the show Ted Lasso and the character Ted Lasso.
Yeah, his unwavering positivity and doesn't understand when people are making fun of him.
And like everybody calls him a wanker. Yeah. But then they start calling him a wanker in a positive way, and you're like, oh my heart. Anyway. They can start to hear raised voices-ish, and they hear someone saying, what the fuck did you say to them? Because I don't remember saying you could spread lies about me to your sister. And the response is inaudible, but like Tori knows it's Charlie, and everybody else does too. The other voice continues and calls him an attention-seeking prick, and telling his sister's lies, who was telling his sister lies so she can spread them, and says that Charlie basically thinks he's better because he doesn't eat. And even though he hasn't looked at the person that's talking, which obviously is Ben, even though he hasn't looked at Ben since he's been with Nick, he's going to spread shit that isn't even true. Ugh. So there's a lot happening. They can finally hear Charlie's voice, and he says he hasn't told anybody. And he also says he can't believe that Ben is still terrified of people finding out. And then there's a sharp smack and crash, and Tori starts to run towards them. And she just sees Charlie crumpled on the ground, and Nick just tackles Ben.
Yay!
Right? So Michael and Lucas pull Nick off Ben, and Ben just says that he deserved it for being a liar. And obviously we're in Tori's head, but she is not okay.
I would also not be okay if someone did that to I don't have a brother, but if someone did that to my sister and then said that they deserved it.
Yes. Ooh. I think I would probably scratch their eyes out.
Yeah, I would lose my shit.
Yeah. Tori is worrying about Charlie, obviously. She's sitting in front of him, which I also think I probably would do that too. But I don't know if I would. I might lose my shit first and then be like, oh, are you okay?
I'd be like, oh, Nick is done with you? My turn.
Yeah. Like, oh, they're all busy holding each other? I'm going to kick the shit out of you now.
I'm just going to say we already said that like this was written first, but then when Alice Oseman wrote Heartstopper, she actually included this moment in the first book, or the first graphic novel. And the backstory here is that Charlie and Ben were a secret item. But Ben didn't want anybody to know that they would hook up sometimes. And when Charlie said he didn't want to meet up anymore, Ben got a little bit mean about it and
sexually assaulted him. Yeah.
And then just wouldn't leave him alone for a little bit until you know, it took a while for Charlie to like get him to get over it.
And part of it was Nick, like Nick came in and I can't remember if he punched him then too.
Saved him a little bit, like.
Yeah. And that was before they were together as well. So like, yeah.
Yeah. So reading Heartstopper, we now know that
what's happening here. Yeah.
Yeah. Right? But again, if you haven't read Heartstopper, then you wouldn't sort of get the backstory and how much of a creepazoid this guy actually is.
Exactly. And like when he first showed up in the book, you're like, oh shit, not this guy again. So Tori is sitting in front of Charlie and she's worried that he's hurt, but then like she also kind of says that Charlie didn't tell her anything, and then she just yells it that like Charlie didn't tell her anything. So she's like, he didn't deserve it. None of this is true. And like her yelling it kind of shuts everyone else up. So Charlie ends up being okay. Like she helps him up and he is fine. Becky has disappeared, and obviously Ben is a huge dick.
Thank God. She needs to get out of there.
Yeah. Charlie tells Ben he isn't going to tell anybody because he's not a dick, but he does say that he feels bad that Ben is such a cliche, which is like, I don't know. Ben, if it was just their relationship, sure, don't tell people, it's not his place to out Ben. But the fact that like he literally forced himself onto him, like that's not okay. That is something that he should, like, if he told his therapist would probably tell the cops.
Yeah.
Like, that is assault.
Yeah.
But anyway, Ben is clearly scared of the truth and just tells him to fuck off. They all start to kind of like walk away, and Tori wants to say something to Ben, but like she can't wrap her head around everything and she can't get it out. And like Lucas kind of like helps her away. And Nick and Michael are on either side of Charlie. And as they walk out, she kind of sees Becky is hiding, which is fair. Like, it's a fight. You don't want to be in the middle of it. And she knows that Becky will break up with Ben because she has to, because she's Tori's best friend.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes 100% sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then someone asks if they should feel sorry for Ben, and she thinks that it might have been Michael. And then she says somebody else asked why there are no happy people, and she thinks maybe it was her that asked that.
Yikes.
And that's the end of the week, which is hella depressing. Sorry, guys. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just sort of the beginning of our spiral a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I feel for Tori, but at the same time, I feel like she really needs to work on being a little bit more out there and positive.
Yeah, I think she needs therapy herself.
Well,
like, she obviously can't deal with everything that's happening in her life, and she's overwhelmed, and she has such negative self-talk that, like, you kind of got to wonder where that came from. Like, is her mom?
I would say her crappy mother.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. I think that everybody needs therapy.
Yeah. Who doesn't love a bit of therapy?
Exactly.
So I guess that wraps it up for this week. If you want to get in touch with us and share your thoughts on anything you heard in our episodes, or if you have any book suggestions, you can email us at coffeeandcoread@gmail.com. And be sure to check us out on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at coffeeandcoread.
So next week, we're going to be discussing Solitaire chapters 24 to 9. So there's part 2 in the book, and the chapters start again. So 24 to 9 does make sense. I'm not a moron. Well, and then on Monday, we will be releasing a special Galentine's Day episode um, where we're going to be talking about characters that we would like to befriend in books that we've read. So tune in for that and make sure to follow along if you're enjoying our little chats. And don't forget to follow, rate, and review wherever you find our content. Thanks for listening, everyone, and we'll see you on the next page.